Hello, I'm Traitor, and I'll be teaching you the ins and outs of Prison Lane for the Hero Story speedrun. First, let's watch how it's done, and I'll go into detail afterwards. We get introduced to Tails' playstyle in the boss fight, and immediately after we get his first stage, Prison Lane. Prison Lane is probably the most movement-intensive Tails stage, and as such, this stage very easily shows the skill someone has in mech. So now let's start with the video essay that basically boils down to hit the enemies to open doors as early as possible and skip elevators. As soon as we spawn into Prison Lane, we have the first gate that is opened by destroying the 3 beetles. To efficiently hit the beetles, you want to start by holding B and locking onto the middle and left beetle, and then locking onto the other one separately. An important thing that will save a few seconds over the course of the run is to jump early off of the elevators. You can skip the second elevator by jumping on the fence, and while it looks precise, it's actually pretty simple. After that, you hit the enemies once again like you see here. When trying to optimally move around these doors, there's 2 things that you need to know. If you hit the enemies early, you can rush to the side that it opens from and jump around to maintain momentum. But if you notice you aren't fast enough, slow down to let the door open so you don't ram into it as it's opening, because as you might guess, that's only going to make you lose more time than you would if you had been patient. Jumping here looks scary, but the platform has one-way collision, so you're able to jump straight through it. When you're moving through this hallway, you're able to lock onto the enemy before the gate early enough to save yourself a bit of time. Here we get to the only kind of skip that Prison Lane has, which is the gate hops. How it's achieved is by shooting the enemies and then jumping on the gate as it lowers, which lets you skip the elevator. Make sure to avoid the flying beetle that can easily shoot you off, or you can shoot him first by holding B as you're jumping onto the gate. This saves around 3 to 4 seconds, so in a stage all about movement, it's pretty major. This elevator only starts moving once you activate it by stepping on the platform, so jump on it as early as possible. Stand in front of the fence to avoid having to wait for it to come down at the end of the elevator section, saving another few seconds. When the camera adjusts, aim up left and jump to be able to lock onto 2 enemies. After locking onto both, aim up right and jump like before to lock onto the guard and beetle. To time the jump to the platform, I use a visual cue of the giant red arrow that you see here, and doing a full jump when the elevator lines up with the bottom of the arrow to save as much time as I can. At the end of this hallway, an enemy will drop down. I like to jump and shoot for a quick hit earlier than the homing missile would be able to. Hit the enemies far in front of you, keeping the door to the left of you locked, and stay decently far away from it. Let the door open to run up and have momentum without accidentally bonking. While you're waiting, I choose to use that time to aim forward and destroy the boxes in front of me so that when I get to that section of the stage, it makes it easy for a clean jump. This elevator is interesting because you can jump significantly earlier than it feels like. There is a visual cue on the left wall to know when to start moving. If you've done Prison Lane before, you might know that the flying beetle shoots and it's pretty hard to avoid, so you might think that you'll get shot if you jump too early, but in fact, that's not the case. All you need to do to avoid it is just really hug the left wall until you pass the bullet from Mr. Beetle. Destroy the gun robots and then hold basically directly right to be able to lock on to the next set of enemies just ahead early. Don't worry if you mess this up, it's probably one of the more difficult to explain sections and it's easier to just try it until you get it to work. Next, to lock onto the gun robots early, aim slightly up left so that Tails still moves forward but allows you to lock on through the wall. Pass through the door you opened earlier and stay running in this section holding left, and do not jump onto the higher platform. It may seem obvious that you should move forwards to be closer to the door as it's opening, but in fact that loses time because if you don't jump onto the higher platform, you're able to lock onto the enemies earlier, which means the door opens earlier. Surprise! There's another gate hop, but this one has 4 enemies you need to destroy. Because not only do you need to get the gate to lower, but you also need to open the door that leads to the goal ring. Hold B to lock onto the 3 enemies behind the gate, and once you're near the end of the hallway, I jump to lock onto the enemy in the air that's hidden, and immediately destroy them once I lock onto them all. The movement is the same as the previous gate hop after that. Just spam the lock-ons here. The homing missiles come out of Tails' mech faster if you have multiple combos going at the same time, rather than one large combo. Move back to the shadow on the ground and do a quick turn to seamlessly zoom under the door. And there you have it, that is how you do Prison Lane. There's a few places that are pretty difficult, but once you get used to it, it's honestly one of the more fun stages. Thank you for watching. I hope your speedrunning goes well, and have a good day.